is the least ball-knowing person statement I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
He's got it! Jeremiah Smith!
The Michigan Wolverines shock to college football. Whoa!
You know, some people gotta learn how to lose, man.
And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry. Proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
Well, we have finally got 1 week of actual full slate college football.
Oh, man, it was so good.
Under our belts, and everybody except Alabama had a really, really good time. Also, maybe Texas. Half
Notre
the teams.
Dame probably also didn't have much fun.
So to be fair, half the teams in college football did not have a good time. But then there's us. We're Jace and JP, Michigan, Ohio State. This is the Rivalry Podcast from River Radio Ministries and presented by our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. There is so much to get to. Yes, we're going to talk Texas, Ohio State. We're going to talk Michigan, Oklahoma coming up this weekend. We're going to talk about Alabama.
Oh, can't. And this is the only time I'm going to find joy in doing that.
We're going to talk about Alabama, and we're going to talk about all the national media people that took Alabama as their national title champion. And then we're going to talk about JP saying, yeah, they ain't getting out of week one undefeated. On social media at RivalPod and rivalpod.com, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. If you're not watching right now, you should be. We've got some brand new banners up behind Mr. JP
So nice.
there. Look at that. Got a little custom rivalry stuff. And by the way, you can get your own custom rivalry. So I don't think we have that up on the website at this moment, but you can get yourself a custom Rival Pod t-shirt shop when you go to rivalpod.com. And by the way, wherever you're listening right now, be sure to rate and review. It seems like a small thing, takes like 25 seconds. If you can spare 25 seconds, that helps the algorithm, the robots, our AI overlords know that, hey, this is a pretty good college football podcast, and it puts it in front of more eyes and ears.
On the pretty good.
Sometimes good. This is a college football podcast.
Sometimes talk football.
If you are, by the way, if you're not familiar, this is literally just Michigan Man and Buckeye Nut every single week. We sit down. We've been friends for years. This is like our 7th or 8th season of doing this podcast. And we talk through Michigan. We talk through Ohio State. We talk about college football at large, but mostly how does it relate to that final Saturday in November. So thank you for being here. We do like to start off with a little bit of a wheel route, a little bit of an icebreaker question to get the ball rolling. We barely need this today.
Yeah, there's so much that I feel like we could just go down the list.
And the wheel slowly stops. Okay. So the question is Arch Manning overhyped? And I'm going to have us not answer that question.
Okay. Perfect. I love the start of this.
Because I've got kind of this I've got this side segment that I want us to walk into. And I'm going to have us get to that question last, if that's okay. So this is kind of a general look at college football. We will come back to the is Arch Manning overhyped? So I'm calling this pause or panic. And this is your classic week one leads to incredible numbers of overreactions from everybody. Either your team is the best or the worst, or this team over here is the best or the worst. You get the idea. Is this a week one overreaction or an accurate reflection of where things stand? So we're calling this pause or panic. Arch, we'll get to Arch. Pause or panic on Arch here last.
Just like Ohio State's defense.
But I want to start with this. Pause or panic, Alabama. Let's get to the Crimson Tide elephant in the room.
Yes.
Pause or panic on Alabama. Alabama obviously gets beat by Florida State in Doak. Thomas Castellanos talked his talk all off season about you don't have Nick Saban to save you. I don't see him stopping me. And they couldn't. So JP, pause or panic, Alabama.
I'm panic. I'm absolutely panic. This is a team that lost 3 games last season. You come in, you no longer have Jalen Milroe. You're
better or for worse.
Look, regardless of what your opinion is, the guy was a playmaker. Jalen Milroe gone. The only offensive talent you have after losing Haynes to Michigan is you have Ryan Williams, and you're hanging your hat on that. And man, you don't have anybody that can get him the ball.
Well, and they lined him up. I was listening to, might have been Klatt, but I was listening to somebody breaking some of this down, and they said that he took like, the numbers might be a little off, something like 25% of his snaps were in the slot last year. He took 90% in the slot on Saturday. And was just getting, and Klatt or Josh Pater, whoever it was talking about him just getting lit up over the middle. Of course he was. I'm with you. Panic on Alabama, because here's the thing. Kalen DeBoer was already coming into the season, rightfully or wrongfully, right? And we've talked about this with Michigan and Ohio State. When you coach at one of these premier blue blood programs, and Alabama clearly is that, despite whatever issues they may be having right now, there is an added level of pressure. So you go 9-3 at Alabama after you've gone through the Nick Saban era. People are going to be concerned about that.
You already heard it even after last season when they missed the playoffs. They lost 3 games. People were already, and it was Kalen's first season.
And then, and it didn't help that then in the playoff game where Alabama played most, if not all, of their starters, and a Michigan offense that was pretty inept started very few stars on defense, and Michigan dominated that offense. That was concerning. So you come into this game thinking, okay, this is a chance for DeBoer to kind of right the ship. We'll start off on the right foot. Here we go. And not only did you lose, you lost pretty bad.
Well, and if you look down the list, so that Alabama already has a loss on their record.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're taking this here.
This schedule doesn't get any easier. And there's one game in particular that I added onto this that now I'm thinking is maybe a little bit of a tougher out than people are maybe giving them credit.
Is it Louisiana Monroe this weekend?
It is. Spoiler alert, Stupid Genius coming up later. You'll never guess who I picked.
Let's go.
The Crimson Tide still have teams like Georgia.
Yep.
They have Tennessee. On the road. They have South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, and one that I'm sneaking in there, Wisconsin.
No, Wisconsin doesn't even have a healthy quarterback. You missed Mizzou. How about we add at Mizzou into that list instead of Wisconsin? Alabama could very well. I'm not saying they will, but Alabama is staring down the barrel of 7-5. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but I'm saying look at what you just listed. With already 0-1 at Georgia, at Mizzou, at South Carolina, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma.
I would feel comfortable right now looking at that list of teams and immediately chalking up Georgia and LSU as for sure losses. And that right there is another 3-loss season. So I don't think 5 is necessarily out of the question.
Nothing's for sure in college football, but I'm with you. This is a panic. And I don't typically buy, well, Team X just want it more than Team Y. Florida State flat out wanted it more than Alabama.
Oh, 100%.
And it was pretty clear. All right, so we're both panicked on Alabama. Pause or panic, Clemson?
I'm going pause. I know last week we talked about this, and I think even the episode before, I have Clemson obviously winning the ACC. I still really believe in that defensive line. I still really like Cade Klubnik. Dabo is still a good coach. Their schedule isn't anything crazy. You've got SMU, Duke, Florida State, and South Carolina. I think probably on paper, Clemson is still a better team than all of those. This was a tough game against a really, really good LSU team. I'm not going to hang my hat on all of a sudden I'm out on this team just because of that. I think in all of these other games that are tough games that I mentioned, Clemson's going to be the favorite. They have a really, really good chance to win all of those games. The first 3 I mentioned, SMU, Duke, Florida State, are all home games for Clemson. The one road game is at South Carolina. I watched South Carolina this weekend, and
it looked like a first game of the year.
Lenore Sellers was good.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
But do I think that team is necessarily like? I just don't think they're on the same level when it comes to Clemson. I'm not hitting the panic button on them yet. I've got them at pause.
I would agree with you. I nearly went panic here, but then I think all the reasons you laid out. I mean, they've got a tough schedule, like you said. I think the schedule's tougher than maybe you're giving it credit for. I think SMU, I think Florida State suddenly looks like a very tough one, but it's hard to tell, right?
Yeah.
South Carolina, Georgia Tech in there as well. If they go to the ACC championship game, Miami is obviously one of the favorites to be in that game as well. So I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, well, suddenly it's the first weekend in September. And even if you're just looking at Tech, SMU, Florida State, South Carolina, Clemson suddenly got to go like 3-1 through that slate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still pause on them because I like you still take them to win the ACC. But even in the preseason, before any of this happened, I did not buy them as a deep playoff team. I still do not buy them as a deep playoff team. And dare I say, I told y'all I was the only person in the country that said LSU.
I don't think you were the only person.
The only person in this room.
I think people from LSU would have something to say.
I don't think so. Everybody was high on Clemson, and I said LSU will go into Death Valley and they will get a win in their own barn. And they did. By the way, I'm feeling a little better about my LSU to win the SEC pick after this weekend, too.
I still am not.
That's it. By the way, you didn't gloat at all about Florida State over Alabama. That was your stupid genius.
I know, because we haven't gotten to that segment
Okay.
yet. I have a whole monologue prepared. Why would you ruin that?
Because I'm trying to undercut it right now. Let's get to the question at hand, though, because this leads us into why you're probably here for this podcast. Pause or panic, Arch Manning. And this obviously will lead into...
Or are you going Texas overall? Or kind of a mix of both?
However you want to answer it.
I'll go both.
This will obviously lead into the game a little bit. We'll try to not dive so far in, but yeah, just pause or panic, Arch Manning / Texas.
This is going to be kind of a blanket statement for me. I'm going to go both on the side of, not as both pause and
I was going to
panic.
say, you can't pause and panic, my guy.
I'm talking Arch and Texas as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm pause, which might surprise you. I think Arch will be fine. I think this Texas team will be fine. But that doesn't mean that this loss didn't really, really hurt them, because coming back to it again, this is a tough schedule. They have at Florida, Oklahoma, at Georgia, and Texas A&M. This team might have another loss or two on their schedule. I do still believe that Arch will be a great quarterback. I still think that this defense is elite. I think Ryan Wingo is still a phenomenal receiver. They still have a really, really good running game. And this is where I won't hit this on the head too much, because we'll obviously talk about it. But it's been something that's kind of irked me a little bit over the weekend after the Ohio State-Texas game, is all I heard since that game's conclusion is, well, Arch just didn't look like himself. He just blah, 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 this and that. But zero talk about maybe part of the reason that he didn't look as good is because this Ohio State defense was also pretty dang good on Saturday.
I think there's been plenty of talk about that.
Not from the national media. I have not heard hardly anything. It has been, well, Arch missed a lot of really easy throws, which for sure I think some, but this Ohio State defense, and I saw one guy, and I don't even know where, and honestly, I don't care to even shout him out because it was so stupid. But he said... Was
it my Twitter account again?
It might have been your burner account.
That's fine.
No, it was actually a TikTok somewhere where this guy who was hosting a podcast in his Aunt Martha's basement somewhere was talking about how Arch Manning, or there were two things that Matt Patricia fooled this weekend. Was one, Arch Manning, and then two, Ohio State fans into believing that they have a good defense again. And he said Matt Patricia threw every single thing he had at Arch Manning, and now teams are going to have that Ohio State defense figured out.
That doesn't make any sense.
And I just disagree with that statement. That is the least ball-knowing person statement I've ever heard in my entire life.
And you've been doing this podcast
and I've been doing
for
this podcast
4 years.
For 4 years, and I've said a lot of horrible things. If you've seen me play NCAA, I don't play smart football. But that just kills me. The lack of credit that's being given to the Ohio State defense. So if I look at it as a big picture, I think this Texas team is still an elite team. They're still going to be one that's contesting for the SEC, which, as much as we make fun of, is still a really, really good conference.
Well, it's the Big Ten in the SEC.
Yeah.
One is clearly better right now. Mm-hmm. And it's the one with back-to-back national champions, right?
And we root for two of the teams in it. We'll let you know which one we chose.
Yeah. Well, we root for the two defending national champions, right?
Yeah.
I'd agree with you. And again, I'm going to try not to lead too much into it, but we kind of will here. I'm pause on Texas. I think Texas is still going to be a really good team. I think that there is, and I'll hold my cards a little bit. I do think that there is credit for Ohio State's defense in this game. I think you're not watching closely if you don't think that Ohio State deserves credit for this game. I will probably be less bullish on it than you are. But that being said, I'm still pause on Arch as well. What clearly happened, and it was frustrating. Here's what was frustrating in the aftermath for me is I get that as media members, it is our job to to go to the games and to watch the film and to pontificate and to do all this stuff and to create these narratives. It's not a big word for me. I have a great vocabulary. But to do all those things, but sometimes we're just throwing stuff out there to throw stuff out there because we like to hear ourselves talk. And one of my concerns going into the game was, I said that I thought that Arch Manning was more than just your average new starting quarterback. I still think that. But I also was pretty clear that I was not ready to crown him Heisman winner just yet. Yeah. I was pretty explicit about that. And I think this is a good example of why is no, I did not expect him to play as poorly as he played on Saturday. When push came to shove, I said I trusted Arch more than I trusted Julian Sayin. And we'll get to the quarterbacks here more in a second. I don't even
think that's a crazy statement.
I don't think so
from
either.
The OSU side.
Yeah.
I think I said the same thing.
You did. In the long game, I probably still do. But I think what happened, I think the overreaction to Arch Manning's performance says less about Arch and more about the way the media portrayed it. And I'm not begrudging anybody their commercial deals or their NIL or anything, but the number of commercials with Arch in it, right? The number of media members who are just hyping this up. ESPN's got this massive story about how the Mannings have been preparing Arch for this his whole life, and I get to an extent that is true. It wasn't just about the Ohio State. It's about this moment as a Texas quarterback, premier program. I understand that. Okay. I understand how this works. I've been in the media for 10, 15 years. I get how this works, but I think everyone expected him to absorb his uncle's Super Bowl rings by osmosis and forgot this is a first year starter on the road for as much as I hate them at the defending national champions building. Did he still not look great? Yeah, he still looked rattled. He missed some wide open throws. Also, he probably can't hear because his first start is on the road in a raucous environment. And Ohio Stadium has been, I think, to an extent, rightfully criticized for some of the game day atmosphere. So similar to how Michigan Stadium has been in years past. It did not feel or sound that way on Saturday. It was rocking. It was good for the Buckeyes and all that stuff. So all that to say, as we're diving in here, pause on Arch. And that includes pause on punting on him and pause a little bit on the Heisman hype. Let him go out. Sark didn't seem concerned. And so if you're a Texas fan, I don't think you need to be concerned.
Well, and you saw flashes of it. I mean,
100%.
As poorly as he played, there was a throw on the very last drive that he had where it was just a dot.
Yeah.
Just
it's
an
not a question
dot.
of talent. It was an execution.
The touchdown pass that he threw, phenomenal throw. Yeah. I mean, the only person that could make a play on that was his receiver.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you at the same time, and we can kind of dive into this point. You have to give credit to Ohio State's defense. Ohio State played very well. I saw Tyvis Powell was talking about what Patricia was throwing out there, at least in his estimation. Tyvis was saying that what Patricia threw out there was preventing Arch from really understanding what coverage they were in. So again, think about new starting quarterback. And I've never played football at any level, right? But think about having a new quarterback out there. You're trying to get guys set. You're trying to get play calls in. You're trying to check. You're trying to listen. You're trying to look. You're trying to read. All this stuff is going on. Of course he looks rattled. What did you expect? We talked all last episode about new quarterbacks on the road and how tough that is. Ty Simpson, new quarterback on the road, lost the game. CJ Carr, new quarterback on the road, lost the game. Arch Manning, new quarterback on the road, lost the game. You can go on and on and on here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on any of that. I think, and you kind of hit on this already, Michigan and Ohio State both are a little bit underrated when it comes to stadium atmosphere. Both of those stadiums show up when a game is on the line. You know, when Indiana came last year to Ohio State, you were at the game. That crowd was insane. Yeah. Last year when I went to the playoff game against Tennessee and they were calling it Neyland North and they were saying, we're going to bleed out the shoe and we're going to overtake it. And all these Tennessee people were coming up and it was still just as loud as I can ever remember it.
You told me the Michigan game this past year was as loud as you can remember. Not at the end, but
it was still loud, just a different kind.
Well, a lot of that was the pepper spray.
Yeah, a lot of that was different. The crowd was just on another level. I think there were so many things to take away, and there's stuff that I just and maybe it's because I tune out the national media enough on those game days, but it felt like every ESPN, Fox, every game that day, even last night when they were talking over halftime and recapping the weekend, all you saw was how Arch played bad. And they never gave a specific, he played bad, he looked rattled because of this. It was, he just missed easy throws.
Which is true, but not the whole story.
But it's not the whole story. I thought you saw it from the time down. The one thing that really stood out to me was the same exact thing that Ohio State had last year. And Michigan had it the 2 years prior to that bend, don't break attitude, where Texas had their chances.
Yeah.
They had numerous chances to go and score, and they just didn't. Ohio State toughened up when they needed to. They stopped them. There was a 4th and goal, just flat out stopped them.
Yep.
Time and time again, Ohio State was making the right play. The defense was making the right decision. And I think there were a couple of key players on that team that this Ohio State defense is going to have to really rely on. But the one thing that I think makes them great at what they do is their football IQ. And there's 2 players, and it's some of the most important positions to have on your defense is block O recipient in Sonny Styles, your middle linebacker. And then the other one is obviously Caleb Downs. 2 guys who just have elite ball knowledge. They know the scheme. They know what to do. They know where to direct their guys. And you saw that. You saw some of the younger guys being directed by those 2 captains, and they were able to make the plays.
Yeah. I thought Arvell Reese,
a guy that I've harped on numerous times, maybe had the best game of any of them. Igbinosun, who we have made fun of many times.
And I'll continue to do so because I don't think he's that good.
He had a pretty good game.
That's fine.
He was fine. Jermaine Matthews, a guy that had some reps last season, and you had seen the potential, makes a huge play for an interception, a great break on the ball. This defensive line got some pressure when they needed to. A lot of that was the defensive line depth. Kenyatta Jackson going down, and they didn't really seem to miss that much of a beat. So that was a huge plus. I thought CJ Hicks coming off the edge, it was really, really awesome to see how the game ended last season in the Cotton Bowl, where Jack Sawyer comes off the left side of the line, right side of the quarterback, almost unblocked, gets immediately to Ewers, gets the strip score. We all know how that play ended. And then for this game to end with CJ Hicks coming off the exact same side, virtually untouched, immediately getting pressure on Manning, not getting a sack, but making him uncomfortable enough to where he had to make a throw, and Caleb Downs was there to stop him short. I mean, the defense just played out of their minds. They were tough. They were gritty. Everything you could have expected and hoped for out of that defense, you got. The stuff with the offense is where I still have a few question marks. Can
I chime in on the defensive side here? Because this is a podcast with 2 people on it.
Sure.
I am less bullish on the Ohio State defense than you, while still, I think, giving them well-deserved flowers for this game. For me, and I would say this on the Texas side too, as far as their defense goes, I think both of these defenses are very good. So don't hear me not saying that. But I feel like I almost have to swing a little bit the other direction and say, for me, as good as the defenses were, I thought this was kind of an ugly football game, more so than a defensive masterpiece. You know, like I know on the broadcast they try to talk about like these defenses are elite, and maybe they are. But I watched Arch throw, and yes, there's credit to Ohio State's defense, but I also went a number of times in that game, and it really, some of it had to do with Ohio State's defense, and some of it didn't. Same thing on the other side. I watched Texas' defense, and some of it was, wow, Texas' defense is really good, and some of it was watching Julian Sayin and going, okay, that's just a guy. And I didn't think that it was as incredible of a defensive performance, you know, as I think it was being made out to be. I thought the quarterbacks were fine. I didn't think Arch played very well. I thought Julian Sayin, and I'm guessing that this is where you're kind of heading with the offense here. And I'm genuinely curious on your take. But I would say that one of the things that I vehemently disagree with from the Ohio State beat, because it would be weird if as a Michigan guy who just was like, yeah, Ohio State absolutely has this right. Yeah, go Bucks. Like I wouldn't be doing that. Julian Sayin was fine. I did not think that he was played bad by any stretch. I also was not impressed by him.
Like, give him a grade. If you had to grade that performance.
If I had to grade the performance, a B minus.
That's fine.
And I think that's the thing here too, is that Ryan Day even said, understandably so, we don't need him to be great. Just win. And he did that. So I'm okay with that. Like if I'm in Ohio State shoes, I'm okay with the performance that he had. What I'm not going to sit here and allow, though, is I'm not going to allow 11 Warriors to talk about he was so poised, he was so steady, he shined, he was so impressive in this debut. No, he wasn't. He did enough.
What
he did enough. You don't want to just look at stat lines. Are not always accurate, but his stat line was 13 of 20 for 126. A third of that kind of pedestrian line was the underthrown touchdown to Carnell Tate. Shout out Carnell Tate because that was an incredible catch.
Mm-hmm.
There are games where you have a quarterback playing the position that you win that has very little to do with the quarterback. That was one of those games. Michigan went into Columbus and beat Ohio State with Davis Warren in a game that had very little to do with Davis Warren. It wasn't to that level, but that's my point, is that just because Sagan was the starter doesn't mean he really affected the outcome of this game. He did not turn the ball over,
which impacts the game.
But what I'm saying though is that he did enough. He did what he needed to do, but I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh my goodness, that was so impressive." It wasn't. It was fine and it got the job done. So be happy with that, but don't make it into more than that. And I'm not going to let Ohio State fans make it into more than that.
But I think you're just reading too far into that.
I don't think so. How am I reading more far into that?
You're making it seem like Ohio State fans are sitting here and telling them to hoist the Heisman, and nobody is saying that from the Columbus side of things. We're just saying this guy, this kid who was tasked with being a starter at a blue blood program where the expectation is you don't lose a game. Regardless, they don't care. Nobody in Columbus cared that it was Julian Sain's first time against the number one team playing an elite defense against a team that people are picking to potentially win the championship. Nobody's looking at that with a little bit of sympathy and saying, well, Julian, it's okay if you lose this game. They're going into it going, you better figure out a way to do it. And for him to go in there, and you read the stat line of 13 of 20, you and I both watched the game. You say it all the time. Box score watchers are the pits.
Correct.
That is not accurate of what his stats were. He had about 3 to 4 passes that were just flat out drops from his receivers. 2 of them for sure from Jeremiah Smith, 1 from Max Clare. That would have been a first down that would have kept the drive going, but instead they ended up having to punt. It's hard to say what his ultimate stat line would have been. Yeah, and I'm not, he could have went and sustained that drive. You never know.
And I'm not so concerned about the stat line. I'm trying to drive home the fact that I'm not saying that he played poorly.
No,
but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit here and be like, that was such an impressive outing. No, what was impressive, the thing that impressed about Julian Sain is they won the game. That's it. Period.
It's impressive from the standpoint of, I think a majority of people, myself included, expected him to make a mistake. They expected him to come out and be a little bit shaky. And he wasn't. He made really good reads. He was smart with the football. He, like we even said, he didn't have to be some superhuman player out there. He had to command the offense, which he did, in a game where the run offense gave him absolutely nothing.
Yeah. We'll slide into that here.
And he went out there. He made the right throws. He was accurate, and he took care of the ball against an elite defense, against the number one team in the nation. I would say giving him a B means that was a really impressive game to me. If you put Arch Manning and Julian Sain side by side, who do you think had the better game between the two? I'm going Julian Sain.
But again, I would as well. And that's not my point. My point is not he played poorly. My point is that I'm going to try to take the edge off and say, everybody chill with that was incredible. No, it wasn't, but it was enough.
And that's all that
he needed to do enough, and he did enough. He did nothing more, nothing less.
And I think to me, that's good enough to be impressive. You took care of the ball. You made the plays when you needed to. You outperformed Arch Manning. You got the victory. To me, that's enough. That checks every single one of the boxes that he needed to do. Yes. I do think, and we'll talk about this more when we obviously preview this upcoming week's game, I do think some of that was play calling as well.
100%.
So I'm not going to read too far into it. You're not going to sit here and hear me going, Julian saying is going to lead the Big Ten in passing yards or anything like that. I think he's better than what we saw on Saturday. I don't think that that Brian Hartline and the offensive play calling needed him to do that, and so they just didn't ask it of him.
And I would agree with that. I'd agree with that. I was just across the board, both sides for Ohio State and Texas. I was not impressed with any offensive player in that game. None. I didn't think there was anybody that was impressive. Carnell Tate had a great touchdown catch. I'll give him that.
Phenomenal.
Parker Livingstone, for that matter, had a great touchdown catch for Texas. But I mean, Ryan Wingo had 35 yards. Jeremiah Smith had 43 yards. That's not good for either of them. Ohio State ran for under 80 yards.
Yeah, 77, I think, total.
And went 3 of 12 on third down. So that's what I mean by, like, I thought this was an uglier game than just masterful defense. I've said my piece. Both defenses are very good, but for me, this was an ugly game more so than, whoa, look at the defense here. Ohio State's run game, I've been trying to say this, and I have said this for weeks, is not impressive to me and is a concern for me. Having watched that game, it's got to at least be on your radar now as a legitimate concern.
It is. I do think that they'll get better as time goes on. But yeah, 77 yards against a team. Granted, it was against a really, really good defense. You got to have more than that. And I know people said it all last year too. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson had a couple of games like this where we had the same conversation where we said they've got to be better. James People, you got to be better. CJ Donaldson, he had the touchdown, but again, that has less to do with him. Here's the thing, though, and if you watch the game, you saw this as well. Holes were there. There were numerous. The offensive line performed great. They didn't allow a sack at all. They opened up a couple lanes. The running backs just weren't hitting them. I don't know what they thought they were seeing. James People specifically, I thought he would be a little bit more explosive.
And Donovan Edwards' vision.
And I know that hurts for you saying it.
To be clear, Donovan Edwards' 2024 vision, to be clear. 22 vision was pretty good in Columbus.
I looked at both of them, and there were times where I saw the gap myself, and I'm going, there. And then they just put their head down and got 2 or 3 yards, and I'm just...
Didn't listen to you.
What's going on with that? Come on.
Yeah. I think, and I'm sure some of this too, I can hear people screaming at the podcast right now going like, what was a conservative game plan? That's fine. It was. But if you're going to call it a conservative game plan, you better be able to perform conservative things, right? Like you got to be able to execute conservative play calls then. Here's the good news if you're Ohio State. You're going to get a chance for everybody to get real comfortable, You don't
have faith in Grambling State?
I do not have faith in Grambling State.
But they just beat up on NAIA Langston Lions.
I'm a big Langston Lions fan.
I knew.
However, Grambling went 5-7 in the FCS last year. They're not a good FCS team, right? Like they're a good FCS. Like North Dakota State always comes out of nowhere and like puts people on the ropes. I unfortunately thought Montana State was going to do that this weekend,
and they didn't.
South Dakota as well didn't. But again, those are all very good FCS programs still. Grambling State is not. Kickoff is like 3:36. It will be over by 4:05. So
that long?
Well, commercial breaks.
I have it over right now, and it's a Monday. It's a Tuesday the week before.
I'm predicting like kickoff, commercial, kickoff, commercial, all that stuff.
Grambling gets the ball to start, goes 3 and out, gains 1 yard, maybe.
So the good news is that you'll get to see more of Julian saying, I mean, he'll be able to throw it around the yard. You'll want him to get those reps. You got Ohio coming in after that. So he's got a couple weeks there. You'll get to see more of it. Again, what will you learn from the Grambling State game? Nothing. But it'll be fun. If you're a Buckeye fan, it'll be fun.
Of FCS players from Grambling State's names and probably know a lot about their childhood because their families will come to watch.
And by the way, like I think their band, I believe, is performing as well. And if you know anything about like HBCUs and stuff, the bands are phenomenal. So Ohio State band, Grambling State, but like that alone, tune in for halftime, and you don't really need to check the score outside of that. Give me, I don't know. Maybe this is conservative. Let's go 49-0.
We are so close.
For Grambling, to be clear.
If that happens, I will retire. This will be the last podcast. I will not.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend.
I could not take an episode after a loss like that. I wish so bad I would have been able to do this podcast with you after the Appalachian State
I don't ever remember that. Did that happen?
I'll remind you, it was just yesterday was the anniversary.
I think that was a dream I had.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not much to say about this. The one thing that I hope for as an Ohio State guy, you've already kind of touched on. This is a game where a couple of mistakes aren't going to kill you. So I'd like to see them open up the playbook a little bit, let Sane actually sling it around there. I'd like to see him get upwards of 30 to 35 pass attempts this game.
Just because he needs the reps.
Get him the reps, feed some of those players. This is a game that you're going to see Lincoln Kleinholtz come in probably at halftime or midway through the third.
Yep.
I want to see the run game actually get going.
Which it will.
It won't.
If it does,
it won't impress me. But if they don't,
this is one of those games where you learn nothing unless things don't go well. Like if you run for like $120, problems.
Well, but this is a game though where I feel like I want them to start throwing it right off the bat.
You would hope so.
Get a couple of touchdowns on the board early, and then you'll start running. And so they're not going to come out there.
There's no reason that this game should be anywhere within 5 touchdowns.
No.
If it is, that's a problem.
Yeah, I've got 49-3.
Okay, well, you always gave him 3 points. That was kind of you. I have more faith in your defense than you do for one segment today. That's good. Fair. Now, maybe you feel a little bit like Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. You're trying to build like a champion. You might not know how to execute it. Aaron and the team at Elevated Integrity Construction have a winning pedigree and a team of All-Americans. They are a juggernaut of the industry. They've built a dynasty of championship builders. If you have a home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity right there in their name. ElevatedIntegrity.com. We appreciate Elevated Integrity Construction for sponsoring this season of the Rivalry Podcast. We are also very proud to partner with our friends at Homage. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube right now, wore the I think it was it's early 1900s Detroit Tigers Detroit shirt today. Also have it in a crew neck. It's fantastic. Dude, respect some history. Pay homage, okay? That's literally their tag. Since 2007, Homage has been helping fans pay homage to the people, places, teams, and moments that matter most to them. Quality craftsmanship, elite storytelling, and trademarked legendary comfort. And if you click in the show notes right now, whether you're in your favorite podcast app, the Varsity Network app, on YouTube, you'll see a link down there for Homage. You can go get yourself. They've got a bunch of Ohio State stuff.
I'm wearing one right now.
They've got a bunch of Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions. They got a bunch of, they've got some pop culture stuff. Go get yourself something. It supports the podcast as well. So that link for Homage is in the show notes below. Go get yourself something. And by the way, mentioning the Varsity Network, we are a proud member of the Varsity Network, powered by Learfield again this season. The Varsity Network is the must-have app if you call yourself a college football fan, which hopefully you do if you're listening to this podcast or watching. Live broadcasts, on-demand podcasts, game replays, just like this one. Free to download. Find the Varsity Network in the App Store and be sure to search for the Rivalry Podcast. That line always trips me up there. I can't seem to do that.
It's tricky to say words.
It is hard to say words sometimes. Here's a couple words that aren't hard to say. Bryce Underwood. Michigan beats New Mexico. And again, in games like this, it's hard to sometimes tell what's real and what's not, right? Like even think about Oklahoma, who we're about to preview here. When it comes to Oklahoma, did we learn much about Oklahoma from them beating up on Illinois State?
No.
Not really, but maybe. Do we learn anything by Michigan beating New Mexico by 3 scores? Maybe, but not really. But one of the things that is pretty clear off the bat is that Bryce Underwood, he's got it. Doesn't mean he's going to be a Heisman winner or anything crazy like that.
No,
but Bryce Underwood has it. And I think for Michigan fans, obviously coming off of, even if you didn't, but especially coming off of last season and just the insane quarterback circus that unlike anything I've ever seen, in my 30 whatever years of watching Michigan football, to go from the whiplash almost to go from that to this kid is phenomenal. Bryce looked really, really good. And like we said, stat lines are only going to show you so much. 21 to 31, 251 and a touchdown. That by the like, and it wasn't just the stat, like that stat line's good, serviceable, fine, looks good. It's the way he played. The poise he had, the confidence he had. I'm not used to seeing it, especially after last year, a quarterback that just, and someone else mentioned this, might have been Maize and Blue Review, shout out, but talked about how he just looks like he's having fun out there, right? The little touch pass to, I almost said Hogan Hansen, the little touch pass down near his own end zone where he just kind of floats it to Marwin Klein. Everyone's going, oh, but he completes it. and he just kind of starts dancing up to the line, tongue out of his mouth, just dancing a little bit. I'm not used to seeing a quarterback having fun after last year. A lot of it was Davis Warren looking like a deer in headlights, or Jack Tuttle looking at his elbow like, well, it shouldn't look like that. Or Alex Orji going I can nowhere.
Throw the ball and not just run it.
Like, and again, respect to those guys because they all beat Ohio State. However, it was just a different feel. It was a different feel. And I was really impressed with it. One of the things that I said going into the game was I wanted to see, not necessarily sling it around the yard, but I wanted to see them open up the playbook a little bit more than Michigan traditionally does, because I wanted to know, what do we have here heading into Norman? And I went back and forth with some people who said, no, they shouldn't do that. Be conservative. I thought what Chip Lindsey rolled out was exactly what I asked for. 30 plus throws, looked really good. Didn't do it. Yeah, of course there's some, mistakes in there, or he didn't turn the ball over, but okay, yeah, I don't like that or whatever. Sure. But I thought the game plan was very balanced from the run game. I mean, Justice Haynes was a menace. 16 touches, 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. I thought it was a very balanced game plan. And I was very happy with the amount of leash that they gave him. I said, hey, take the training wheels off. I thought they did.
Yeah.
Not fully, but they didn't need to. I thought they gave him enough leash that I walked away going, I'm very happy with that game plan. And I think that matters because you're going into an Oklahoma game where you're going to need him to be firing on all cylinders. One of the things that Bryce did not do on Saturday that I'm guessing was by design was he never kept the ball. We never saw him use his legs in that game. I'm going to guess that's by design. I'm going to guess on Saturday, you're going to see him keep some of those where he backs up, and he hands it off to Justice Haynes. I think he's going to keep a couple of those because he's going to have to make that Oklahoma defense respect the run game. Getting ahead of myself there, but I thought the offense was very good. I have a little bit of still concern at offensive line. I thought they played well in a lot of areas. They're not the Joe Moore Award winners of 21 or 22. But I think that they are better than they were last year and will only go up from here. I thought the defensive side of the ball, I thought the pass rush was very, very good. I thought the secondary played very well. I think the one concern that I had was, we've talked about box scores a ton. New Mexico passed for like 200 yards. What Jack Lane did was, because the pass rush was so effective, is he dropped back and it was dink and dunk. It was a screen pass. It was drop back, get the ball out quick to space and let the guy go. There's a balance for me of there's some concern there to go, okay, well, I don't love that because he basically was using the pass rush against itself. But there's also a part of me that goes, well, how many teams are going to play that way? New Mexico is a team with, and Jack Lane's actually a fine quarterback. Here's a fine quarterback with a team that's clearly outmatched. You're under pressure immediately, so you just kind of dunk it out there. Will Oklahoma play that way? Probably not. Will Ohio State play that way? Probably not. But what if they do? And so that's kind of the question mark that's sitting in my head is, what does that look like? The other big question mark heading into Oklahoma would be Jayshawn Barham. So he gets called for targeting, and we don't have to go back through it. Everyone's got their own opinion about it. I think it's a terrible call. I think it's a terrible call. Doesn't lead with it.
I don't know where I stand.
Do the helmets touch? Yeah. Does he lead with the helmet? No. Is there forcible contact? Looks to me like he's wrapping up.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not just Michigan fans. Apparently the Big Ten was also on Michigan's side here, but it's Steve Shaw, I think, is the guy who makes the call. And he said, no, it's going to stand. So the fact that the Big Ten was also kind of with Michigan on this tells me it's not just, maize and blue glasses looking at this. Regardless of how you feel about right call, wrong call, targeting's got to change. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's too hard because I watched that replay and I watched it live, and then I went back and rewatched it to go, what do I actually really think? I watched it slowed down. I watched it in live action. I still don't know. I don't disagree. I don't think he went out there and it wasn't some blatantly obvious targeting call. Do I think his helmet maybe led slightly Yes, but not enough for it to be like he's clearly head
there's
down,
a difference between
barreling.
There's a difference between leading with your helmet and my helmet touched yours.
Well, I think he did put his head a little bit, but not enough for me to have thrown the flag and called that.
And that's the thing too, is that it wasn't called. And again, I get that you have the benefit of replay to go back and see if it's targeting. Okay, I understand how the rule works. Because I saw a bunch of Ohio State and Michigan State fans going like, if this happened to Bryce Underwood, you would feel differently. That's how they talk, by the way. In East Lansing.
It sounds like them.
Especially in East Lansing, I've noticed.
Michigan State fans can string together a sentence like that.
Apparently, they could barely string together a game against Western.
They can't string together a handful of wins. So
let's go get them.
The one time
the little arm wrestling thing or the little like hand clasp thing where it's Ohio State fans, Michigan fans dunking on Michigan State.
Yeah, always.
I don't even know where I was. Oh, well, so I know you can go back and replay it, but the fact that even on the field, nothing was thrown and then you jump all the way to that's targeting and an ejection.
Yeah.
Is just dumb in my mind. So there's concern for Michigan going into Oklahoma that you don't have Jayshon Barham for the first half. However, if you're not super familiar with the Michigan program, Jimmy Rolder can step into that role. Cole Sullivan had a fantastic game. He can step into that role. So for a half, obviously you want your guy, but there are worse positions for Michigan to be in. I feel actually, listen to the folks that know more about this. I feel okay. Yeah, I would love to have him out there. I feel okay. If Michigan loses to Oklahoma, it's not because Jayshon Barham's out for a half. I guess that's what
yeah.
How did you as an Ohio State fan, kind of as we're transitioning here to Oklahoma, how did you feel watching this game? Particularly, I'm interested in your thoughts on Bryce.
Yeah, I thought he looked great. I thought, I mean, you look at this Michigan offense that last year, I went to a handful of those games and watched that team, and I probably could have suited up for quarterback and thrown for more yards in a couple of those. Yeah. And I am not athletic at all, if you can tell whatsoever.
If you're watching on YouTube,
I am all of 5'8", maybe on a good day. But they racked up like 450 something yards on total offense, 200 yards on the ground. It was the same identity that you've seen with Michigan in years past, with another element added into it now. They were still clearly a run-first team, but you saw a different kind of zip on the ball with Bryce Underwood. Yeah. There was a play, and I forget what quarter it was in, but I want to say it was early, where he just a bullet right across the middle of the field. That while I'm watching this at my house, I thought that was the throw they didn't make last year.
100%.
The touchdown pass in the end zone was a beautiful lob pass that I thought that's something that just doesn't happen. It stays in the air too long and gets picked.
A great route by Marlon Klein, by the way, for his first touchdown.
And that's one of those plays that makes me love football because they broke it down in slow-mo and you see Klein go out and start to go and you see the guy kind of follow him to break off to just the out route and then he cuts up. Just beautiful football. I was impressed with him. I think where you stand on him is very fair. I'm not going to sit here and say that's a Heisman candidate.
No.
Crown him as Big Ten passing leader. No. But if he can develop, if he can grow, he could be right up there.
Yeah.
The guy's obviously got the talent. I actually there were a couple of things, and you already pointed out the one that I think are really important. And especially for somebody his age, you're a freshman, a true freshman, that is automatically going to make your teammates want to play for you. And it's the confidence. Yep. You saw him in clear control. He's sitting there throwing dimes after his teammates make big plays. He's strutting his shoulders a little bit. He's got a certain swagger about him. But here's the one, and I know you loved this as well. It was on a Justice Haynes touchdown run where he broke off to the left side, and who was there to make the closing block? Bryce Underwood.
Also, please don't. Please don't.
Makes you poop your pants a little bit.
But
also, if I'm a teammate of Bryce Underwood, and I'm seeing my quarterback not just softly lay his hands, drop the shoulder, and lay into a guy to try and set a block to guarantee a touchdown, I'm going to want to go out there and bust my butt for a guy like that.
It reminded me of 2021 Big Ten Championship. This was the first thing I thought of when I saw that block, and I'm glad you brought it up. It made me think of Big Ten Championship 2021. JJ McCarthy was not the starter, but he was in for this play. McCarthy was a freshman. And Blake Corum breaks off. I think it might have been the opening touchdown for Michigan that game. They scored a lot on Iowa in that game. But Blake Corum is just sprinting down the sideline. And J.J. McCarthy, freshman, not even a starter, sprints past him to throw a block. The quarterback. And again, we know what McCarthy ends up becoming. That's what it reminded me of, is the willingness of this young quarterback to go, do I need to? I don't know, but I'm a football player and I'm going to throw my shoulder into it. 100%. And it reminded me of shades of JJ McCarthy throwing that block for Corum. That was a really good feeling. It was a really good feeling to see that. Yeah, again, you want to take competition into consideration.
It's week 1.
But also, and I think it was Ryan Van Bergen was talking about this on Maize and Blue Review, I believe, with I can't remember. It was Anthony Broom and Ryan Van Bergen, who played for Michigan on the defense, talked about how competition doesn't matter. You can when you see a pass like that, you go, it doesn't matter who it's against. That's a great throw.
For sure.
And we saw a lot of that with Bryce. So looking at Oklahoma, though, how much of that translates over? Because Oklahoma, 35-3 over Illinois State. How much do you learn from that? Nothing, and also a lot. So
you still can take some stuff away.
John Mateer threw for 400 yards on this team. Now, dare I say, Michigan's defense is hopefully a step above the Redbirds.
You better hope.
I really hope. But John Mateer is a very good quarterback. This was the top quarterback in the portal. Not Carson Beck. It was John Mateer. And John Mateer looked the part on Saturday. That concerns me. I'm very concerned about even what I think is a good Michigan defense. And again, Michigan's defense might be elite, but it's so impossible to throw that word out there after week 1. It's hard for me to say that anybody is elite after week 1, because here's if I can tangent for a moment, here's what happens. You have these guys that will talk about, well, Miami and Notre Dame are both phenomenal football teams. And by the way, they might be. They very well might be. But you have these guys who talk about Miami and Notre Dame are phenomenal teams. How do we know Miami's a phenomenal team? Because they beat Notre Dame. And we know Notre Dame's a really good team. Look how they hung with Miami. And I go, hold on a second.
Look how good Notre Dame is. They only lose every time that they play a competent team.
Do you see the circle that we're doing here? This team is good because they beat this team. And we know this team's good because they hung with this good team. That doesn't make sense. So I'm hesitant to say who's good and who's not after week 1, right? Like you can get a feel for it. But John, all that to say, John Mateer looked the part. He looked really good. Oklahoma looks really good. Their problem last year was their offense, not their defense. Their offense looked good. Now, I will say, they could not run the ball on Illinois State to save their lives. John Williams from Locked On Sooners said, and I quote, Oklahoma not being able to run against Illinois State is a problem. Their usage of Jaden Ott makes no sense. So Jaden Ott is the Cal transfer. They spent a lot of NIL money to get him to come. He's coming off an injury. He was placed like 3rd on the depth chart when it was released, and everyone went, "That's not a real depth chart." And then he was like 3rd on the depth chart, and he rushed like once for -3 yards, but he was also out there for like a kick return. So I'm not sure if they are, and by the way, like trying to poke around in some of the Oklahoma stuff, it doesn't seem like their insiders really know what's going on either. Like I've asked them and got no response, rude, but it doesn't seem like they have a clue either of how is Jaden not being used. Are they trying to ease him in? Is he still hurt? Are they saving him? Where is he on the depth chart? And it doesn't seem like they know. And dare I say, that's not a good place to be going up against a Michigan team who, one of the things I don't have much question about is their run defense. No, you don't have Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. But by the way, I almost said Idaho because I've got Jack Lane transferring in on my brain. New Mexico, one of their strengths should have been their run game. With Scott Trey, and I'm blanking on his last name, but with Scott Trey back there running, did absolutely nothing, which is why they went to the dink and dunk passing game. So I feel pretty good about Michigan's ability to stop the run, especially because I'm not sure Oklahoma knows exactly what their depth chart or what their usage is going to be. On the offensive side of the ball for Michigan, I don't know what to expect because Oklahoma's defense is still really good. What does it look like for Bryce Underwood to drop back and throw passes against a good defense? I don't know. What does it look like for Bryce to use his legs against a good defense? Keep him honest. I don't know. It could be success. There's so much unknown in this game. And I guess where I'm going with this is I'm coming back to something we talked about last week, which is it makes me nervous for a young quarterback to go on the road. I think Michigan will be fine in the long run. And if you played this game in mid-October, I might feel different because I'd have more body of work to evaluate.
Are you about to do what I think you're about to do?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I hope I'm wrong. I am nervous.
Hold on, keep talking.
Don't film this.
I'm not filming this.
Well, also, we're recording this on YouTube.
I want
right
different
now.
angles.
I want different.
Just continue.
I want to be able to like switch back.
Continue.
And forth. I think Oklahoma's going to win this football game. I have
your lips to God's ears.
I have concerns about the ability to stop John Mateer. I think Michigan's run defense should be good. I just don't know. I don't know what to make of the Michigan offense versus Oklahoma defense, and so I'm kind of considering that a wash because I just don't know. I'll say this. So I'm taking Oklahoma 28-20. Taking Oklahoma 28-20. I think it's tough to go on the road as a young quarterback. Second start is on the road in the SEC at night. I don't know, man. And by the way, I think there's some added pressure of Sherrone Moore going back to Oklahoma. I don't like when, and I understand it, and I don't think Sherrone's putting this pressure on anybody, but the coach should be able to relieve some of that pressure. I've said this before about Ryan Day. Mm-hmm. The pressure that Ryan Day, intentional or not, puts on his team to win the Michigan game, which obviously there's pressure on there, but I think Ryan Day accentuates that pressure, and I don't think it's helped his teams. I'm fearful of that added pressure of we got to win this one for coach that Michigan just doesn't need. If Michigan manages to win this game, it will be because that Michigan offense is really as good as they looked on Saturday. If they're able to have success against a good Oklahoma defense, it's going to be a good Michigan team. If Michigan is able to shut down John Mateer, it's going to be a good Michigan team. I just don't know. If Michigan is going to win this game, by the way, it is obviously Bryce Underwood's going to have to be good. But it's going to be on the line, right? It's going to be Michigan's offensive line is going to have to create space for either Bryce to use his legs, for Justice Haynes, for Jordan Marshall, and you're going to have to wear down the Oklahoma defensive line, Michigan style. If Michigan's going to win, they're going to have to do that. On the flip side, Oklahoma looks like they may be starting a true freshman at left tackle, or at the left side of their offensive line. That's Derek Moore's spot. If Michigan can disrupt John Mateer, if they can take advantage of young, inexperienced players, force John Mateer to be uncomfortable, as Sherrone said, then maybe we have a different ballgame. But I just think the veteran presence of John Mateer, probably at home, has a better outcome than Bryce Underwood in his first road start. 28-20 Oklahoma. I hope I'm wrong.
I think the key to this game is going to be the ground game. I don't think that's crazy. You've already kind of touched on it. Oklahoma struggled to do literally anything on the ground. Meanwhile, Michigan was running left and right, whatever direction they wanted to, against who I would say is a superior opponent in New Mexico in comparison to Illinois State.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say.
It's an actual FBS team, at least. Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be the key. I think obviously Justice Haynes is going to have success, and I think that's going to help Bryce Underwood a lot. I think this is actually going to be kind of a similar game plan as to what Ohio State had against Texas. Michigan will just be able to operate it better. I think Justice Haynes is going to be able to get the ground game going, which will then open up the passing game for Bryce Underwood. He's not going to have 250 yards and a touchdown and really have to be flashy. He's just going to have to take care of the ball and make the plays on third down when he's called upon.
Ironically, it's the Julian Sayin game plan. Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
And I think he'll be able to get it done. I also actually have a little bit more faith in this Michigan defense than I think you do right now. As good as Mateer actually is, I mean, he's a phenomenal quarterback. There's a reason he was the number one transfer quarterback in the portal.
Dark horse Heisman name being thrown out 100%.
As well. But the one thing Michigan did really, really well this past week was put pressure on the quarterback. They forced some really bad throws. They had 3 interceptions. On the targeting call, they had a fumble that it should have been a fumble. Yeah. So they were forcing turnovers. The defense was gritty. I feel like this is a obvious tough test for Michigan, but this is one that I actually think they're going to pull out. I have Michigan 27, Oklahoma 24.
Let's go.
I think when it comes down to it, the ground game is going to be able to carry them. As good as Mateer is, I just don't have confidence that their run game is going to be there, which I think is going to help the Michigan secondary kind of close in on some of those coverages. And it's going to force a turnover or two. The
Michigan defense is going to obviously have to be good, because I think one of the concerns that I would say I have, and this is going to come with a young quarterback at offense. It's not just all on Bryce. He just obviously gets the biggest spotlight for obvious reasons. But New Mexico, to their credit, now some of this was official assisted. Okay, New Mexico also, in addition to the targeting on that same drive, had a clear incompletion on third down that the refs were like, oh, that was interesting, and just the ball and the drive continued. You know, however. Excuse me. New Mexico dominated time of possession in the middle frame. Second and third quarters, they had the ball for something like 21-ish minutes out of 30 in the second and third quarter. That's not great. So in the second and third quarter, Michigan had the ball for 8-9 minutes total. Mm-hmm. New Mexico had for 20, 22. That's a problem. That will gas your defense. Now, again, a lot of that is, some of it was official assisted, but a lot of that was that dink and dunk stuff that I don't know that Oklahoma's going to run. But that's a concern for if Michigan against a good Oklahoma defense does, struggle a little bit where they have a couple 3-and-outs in a row, and you give John Mateer more and more opportunities and your defense is gassed, that's a problem. So again, Michigan's going to have to win. I mean, so much of football is just win the line of scrimmage, right? And if Michigan's going to do it, I think they will on the defensive side of the ball. If they can do it on the offensive side, to your point, then yeah, I mean, they more than have a shot. They are touchdown underdogs right now. I think it's 5.5. It was 6.5. It's down to 5.5
as of this morning.
I hope they do it, because this game will go a long way into telling you what type of, much like Texas last year, what type of season is Michigan going to have? If
they go into Norman and they pull out a win at Memorial Stadium,
playoff team,
this season looks drastically different. If they go out and lose, the expectations remain the same.
I said this was a 9-3 team. Yeah. If they lose in Norman, it's probably still a 9-3 team. If they win, you might be looking at 10-2. Obviously, that you can see the game flip is obvious. If they win in Norman, this is probably a playoff team, and I don't think that's crazy to say at this point. Let's finish out here with our stupid genius upset picks of the week, along with a little bit of pick'em here, broader college football. You picked Florida State last week.
Heck yeah, I did.
So the way this works, you've got to be at least 5-point dogs. And if you get it right, pretty simple, you get however many points the spread was. So you now have 13.5 points.
13.5 points more than I did all of last season. We're up.
I'm going to let you go first, man. You won last week. It's 13.5-0 already. It's not a good spot.
Yeah, I've already talked about it. I've got Michigan and Oklahoma. That's my stupid genius.
For the first time ever, I hope that your stupid genius pick is correct. There were not a lot of games I liked as upsets this week. It was either within 5 points. Also, not a lot of great matchups this week, outside of the one we just talked about. Mm-hmm. It was either like 2-point spreads or like 27. But I found one I kind of like. Kansas at Mizzou, plus 6.5.
Okay.
Jalen Daniels, not Jaden Daniels, because I keep wanting to call him that. Jalen Daniels. I think he's the real deal. And by the way, I think Bo Prabula is a good quarterback as well. But I like, why not?
That's a fun matchup.
One, slim pickings this week. Number two, Jalen Daniels is a difference maker. Whether you think he can pull off this win or not, give me Kansas at Mizzou plus 6.5. Why not? There are a handful of other games at least worth turning on. Every game is worth turning on because it's college football. But just real quick here, Illinois at Duke is a fascinating game. I'm going to take Duke in this one.
I'm going opposite. I like Illinois.
I think Duke at home is tough. Also, I kind of like to see the Illinois hype die down a little bit.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I do like Mensa for Duke. I think he was a stud. He threw for almost 400, I think, this past week. Dude was awesome.
Baylor at SMU, intriguing matchup.
I have SMU.
I do as well. I think had Baylor beat Auburn, people would feel different about Baylor because they were pretty high on them. But I agree. I think SMU is a tough one. Arizona State, Mississippi State. This is a primetime game. Arizona State losing this game would be a pretty big deal.
It would be, and that's why they just won't. I don't know who you ended up having. I have Arizona State. I actually have Sam Leavitt as a dark horse Heisman for me this year.
I took Arizona State as well. I do not have Sam Leavitt as a dark horse Heisman, but I think you and I both picked them to win the to win the Big 12. And so I'll ride with that. And then Cyhawk is probably the most, outside of Michigan, Oklahoma, probably the most intriguing game of the week. Iowa at Iowa State.
Iowa State. Iowa, for some reason, just can't find a guy to throw the ball. And without a real passing game whatsoever, it's hard for me to ever actually pick a team to win that game.
Didn't they? Isn't there the guy they got out of the portal? Isn't he from South Dakota State? I forget. He was from a big FCS school. And so people were talking hype, and I just didn't see it.
He threw for like 70 yards.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm still not sure on Iowa State as a whole. But also, I mean, I thought that South Dakota would hang with them, and they just didn't. Oh my goodness! So I mean, how can you not roll with Rocco Bakhtier?
Yeah, I thought he's been great to
Give
start
me the Cyclones. Give me the Cyclones. Even though there's less premier matchups this week, still college football is going to happen. Ohio State, Grambling at 3:30, Michigan, Oklahoma in another primetime game, which is great because then I get to wait around all day. Not able to, and just pace, pace around the floor waiting for this game to kick off. The sad part
for me is I'll be at the Buckeye game, but it starts at 3:30. So all the good games that I want to watch, like Rutgers is also at 3:30.
You said good games you want to watch.
That was the I want to watch part, not the good game part.
Okay.
And then obviously that game's going to come close to an end. I'll be in traffic trying to leave Columbus right at the start of that Michigan-Oklahoma game.
You'll see second half though.
Yeah, but that's... I want to see, that's like the one really, really good game of the day. And so I'll probably pull it up. I'll find some radio coverage or something. It'll be fine. The one key thing, and I know this is a college football podcast, but the NFL starts this week too.
We don't care about this.
I shouldn't.
You're a Browns fan. You should not care about this. Lions going to win the Super Bowl this year though. So that's exciting. Okay. That's exciting for me. Hey, if you're not subscribed, be sure to do that. It takes like 25 seconds to rate and review. Be sure to follow on social media at RivalPod. Get yourself some homage merch in the show notes. Get yourself a Rivalry t-shirt at rivalpod.com. Enjoy yourself some college football this weekend.
Good to be back.
The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and rivalpod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.